Welcome back to Revise and Resubmit, the podcast that takes, those really dense academic papers and makes them surprisingly interesting. I'm Pavlov.
And I'm Nikita.
We've noticed a lot of you are tuning in, which is amazing, but I haven't quite hit that subscribe button yet.
Yeah, and that little button, honestly, it's so small, but it makes such a huge difference in helping us reach more people with these important discussions.
Right. It's true. Like the algorithms, those mysterious forces that decide what we all see and hear, they pay a lot of attention to subscriber numbers.
Yeah, think of it like the subscribing. It's like casting a vote for quality content, So these insightful research discussions don't just get lost in the sea of all the information out there.
More subscribers equals more visibility. Right. And that means more resources for us to make even deeper dives for you.
Yeah.
Maybe bring in experts for interviews, even do some live Q&A sessions where you can jump in.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about building a community around research,
Yeah.
where curiosity thrives and knowledge is like shared and debated.
Today we are going to be diving into an idea that might just change how you look at the world around you.
How you judge things.
Yeah. And we're calling this the Misfit Bias.
Ooh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
And this comes from an article that we read in Organization Science.
Yeah.
It's by Bryan K, Stroube, Keyvan Vakili, and Michaël Bikard. Mm-hmm. And Organization Science is published by Informs, which is the Institute for Operations Research in the Management Sciences.
Yeah, Informs is an internationally recognized organization focused on, operations research and analytics and all that.
Right. They're really into data and analysis and all of that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure.
So this isn't just some fluffy idea that we came up with.
Yeah.
This is some serious research.
Hard science.
Yeah, hard science.
Yeah.
So we really wanted to understand this idea of the misfit bias because it's all about how this idea that when things don't fit together.
Yeah, like the elements are mismatched.
Right? It can actually negatively impact how we see those individual elements.
Exactly.
Even if they might be good on their own.
Yeah.
And we thought, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, it's wild.
Why would our brains work that way?
Yeah, that's so interesting.
So we decided to do a deep dive on it for you.
Yeah. And the researchers looked at this through a couple of different lenses.
Yeah.
They looked at it through the lens of the music industry, and they also looked at it through art galleries, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Very interesting ways to think about this.
Yeah, so get ready for some aha moments because this is pretty mind-blowing.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, so let's just jump right into it.
Okay, let's do it.
What is this misfit bias all about?
So basically, the central argument here and what the research really supports is that when a product, or really anything, strikes us as kind of a collection of mismatched parts, what the researchers call a misfit, that negative feeling we get, it doesn't just stop at our overall impression. It actually seeps down. It influences how we think about the quality and the worth of each individual piece.
Okay, so
within that whole...
Say a song on a album that has a bunch of different types of songs.
Exactly.
Would that be an example?
That's a perfect example, yeah.
Okay.
So even if that song on its own is really good,
right,
you might not appreciate it as much if it's surrounded by all these other songs that just don't seem to fit with it.
Okay, so it's like the album kind of casts a shadow over the song.
Totally. Yeah, it's like this negative halo effect.
Oh, interesting.
Where a bad first impression can just kind of taint everything that comes after.
Yeah.
And we know this from psychology research, the halo effect is a well-established thing.
Right.
So if a product has a bad design,
right,
we might assume that it's also going to be low quality, even if it's not.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So this misfit bias is kind of like a specific type of halo effect.
Okay.
Where the sense of mismatch creates this negative impression that spills over onto the individual pieces.
Okay. So I guess that makes sense, but it still seems kind of strange.
Yeah.
It's almost illogical to devalue something that might actually be good just because it's not paired with the right stuff.
Yeah, I know, right?
Why are our brains so obsessed with things fitting together?
Well, I think it comes down to cognitive fluency.
What's that?
Basically, our brains like things that are easy to understand.
Okay.
And when things fit together nicely, it creates the sense of harmony and coherence.
Makes sense.
right? It's easy to process,
Mm-hmm.
but when things are mismatched,
Right.
it requires more effort to figure out what's going on.
Right. So it's like more work for our brain.
Exactly. And our brains are kind of lazy, you know?
They like to take shortcuts.
They totally do. They're like, hey, I don't want to work that hard.
Right.
So if something feels off,
Huh?
our brains just kind of go with that initial negative impression,
Okay.
and we don't bother to really dig deeper.
Okay. So it's a shortcut.
Yeah.
A negative shortcut.
But it's interesting, though, because sometimes things that don't fit together can be really interesting.
Right.
You know, like in art or in music, sometimes that unexpected juxtaposition
Yeah.
can be really powerful.
It can be super creative and innovative.
Right.
Like think about fusion cuisine.
Yeah.
You know, like mixing different culinary traditions can create something totally new and exciting.
Right. So I guess it depends on the context.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not always bad for things to be mismatched.
Right.
But I think what this research is showing is that we have this inherent bias to see misfit as a negative thing.
Yeah.
And that can lead us to miss out on some potentially great stuff.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So how did these researchers actually study this misfit bias?
So they did a couple of really cool studies.
Uh-huh.
One looked at the music industry.
Okay.
And one was an online experiment with art galleries.
Okay. So two very different fields.
Yeah. But both involve combinations of individual elements that people evaluate. Yeah, that makes sense.
So let's start with the music industry study.
Okay.
So they basically wanted to see if there was a relationship between how well songs on an album fit together sonically
Right.
and the success of those individual songs.
Okay.
So you might think like, oh, a really good song is a really good song. It doesn't matter what else is on the album.
Right.
But what they found was that it actually does matter.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
So how did they measure how well the songs fit together?
So they used this really cool technique where they looked at the objective sonic features of the song.
So not like someone's opinion of the song, but
Yeah.
like the actual data of the song.
Yeah, they used data that was algorithmically generated by a company called EchoNest.
Okay.
And they looked at things like valence.
What's that?
Valence is basically how positive or negative the music sound.
Oh, okay.
So like happy versus sad.
Gotcha.
They also looked at acousticness, energy levels, tempo,
Okay.
all these quantifiable characteristics.
Interesting.
Yeah, so by analyzing these features,
Uh-huh.
they could calculate a score for each album.
Okay.
That represented how sonically similar or different the songs were.
So a higher score means...
A higher score means more similar,
Okay.
more consistent.
Gotcha.
And a lower score means more diverse,
Okay.
more mismatched.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they call this the sonic fit of the album.
Okay, so give me an example. Like what kind of albums would have a high sonic fit versus a low sonic fit?
Okay, so a good example of an album with a really high sonic fit
Uh-huh.
is Shania Twain's album, Come On Over.
Oh, yeah. I love that album.
It's a classic.
Yeah.
It's known for its consistent blend of pop and country.
Right.
And it got a really high fit score of 0.93,
Okay.
which put it in the top 5% of albums in their sample.
Wow. So like super consistent.
Super consistent.
Yeah.
Yeah, and even Pitchfork described it as mastering the illusion of genre.
Interesting.
Like, it's just this seamless blend of pop and country.
Right, and it all sounds like one big Shania Twain song.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then on the other end of the spectrum,
Right.
you have an album like Radiohead's Kid A,
Okay.
which is known for being very experimental and genre bending.
Right.
And that album got a very low fit score of 0.68,
Oh, wow.
which put it in the bottom 5% of albums.
So super mismatched.
Yeah, super mismatched. And the critics at the time even talked about how diverse and hard to classify it was. Like Pitchfork described it as hard to classify.
Yeah.
And Rolling Stone said that anyone looking for easy definition should look elsewhere.
Wow. Yeah, that sounds pretty mismatched.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have these two albums that are like on opposite ends of the sonic fit spectrum.
Yeah.
What did they find when they look at the success of the individual songs?
Okay, so here's the really interesting part. They found that albums with a higher sonic fit were more likely to have songs that charted on the Billboard Hot 100.
Really?
Yeah, so the more consistent the album,
Yeah.
the better the individual songs do.
Wow, that's so interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, I would have thought that like a really good song would just stand out no matter what.
I know, right?
But I guess it's not that simple.
It's not that simple.
So how much of a difference did the sonic fit make?
So they found that for every one standard deviation increase in the sonic fit of an album,
Okay.
A song from that album was approximately 16% more likely to chart on the Billboard Hot 100.
So that's a pretty big effect.
Yeah, it's pretty substantial.
Wow.
Yeah, so this suggests that the misfit bias is real, like even in the music industry, where
Right.
you might think that the quality of the song would be the only thing that matters. It turns out that the fit of the album also plays a role.
So even if you have a killer song,
Yeah,
if it's on a mismatched album,
yeah,
it might not get the recognition it deserves.
exactly.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Okay, so that's the music industry study.
Yeah.
What about the art gallery experiment?
Okay, so for the art gallery experiment,
Uh.
they wanted to really isolate the effect of misfit and see if they could establish cause and effect relationship. So they designed this online experiment
Okay.
where participants were shown virtual art galleries,
Okay.
and each gallery contained 3 photographs.
Okay.
And they were asked to rate both the overall gallery and each individual photo.
Gotcha.
Now, to make sure that people weren't biased by things like the photographer's reputation or the style of the photos,
Right.
they told the participants that each photo was taken by a different photographer
Okay.
and that the selection of photos for each gallery was random.
So it wasn't like a curated gallery?
Yeah, it was just like a random assortment.
Okay.
So they created 2 types of galleries, fit galleries
Okay.
and misfit galleries.
Okay, so what made a gallery fit versus misfit?
So the fit galleries contained either 3 black and white portraits
Okay.
or 3 wildlife photos.
Okay, so all the same kind of style?
Yeah, all the same style.
Gotcha.
And then the misfit galleries
Huh.
contained a mix, so like 2 portraits and 1 wildlife photo.
Okay.
Or 2 wildlife photos and 1 portrait.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and they also randomized the order of the photos.
Okay.
So that the position of the photo wouldn't influence the ratings.
Right.
Yeah, so what they found was that people consistently rated the individual photos lower
Oh.
when they were part of a misfit gallery.
So even though the photos themselves were like the same quality
Yeah,
across the different types of galleries,
exactly.
people still rated them lower if they were in a mismatched gallery.
Exactly.
That's so crazy.
Yeah, it really shows the power of this misfit bias.
Yeah.
Like, even when you control for the quality of the individual elements, the fit of the overall combination still matters.
So it's like the gallery is casting a shadow over the photos.
Totally, yeah. It's like this negative halo effect again.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
Okay, so what else did they find in this experiment?
So they also wanted to see if emphasizing the whole
Okay.
would amplify the misfit bias. So for some participants, they asked them to evaluate the overall gallery or the fit between the photos before they rated the individual photos.
Right.
And what they found was that this did indeed amplify the misfit bias.
So when people were forced to think about the gallery as a whole,
Yeah.
they were even more likely to rate the individual photos lower if they were in a mismatched gallery.
Exactly.
That's so interesting.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, so it's like the more we think about the overall fit, the more salient the misfit becomes.
Right.
And the more negative our judgments become.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So it's not just about the individual elements themselves.
Yeah.
It's about how they fit into the larger context.
Totally. Yeah.
Okay, so what does all of this mean?
What are the implications of this misfit bias?
Yeah, like why should we care about this?
So I think there are a few key takeaways here.
Okay.
First of all, it shows that we have this inherent bias to see misfit as a negative thing.
And this can lead us to undervalue things that might actually be good,
Yeah.
just because they don't fit in with our expectations or our preconceived notions of how things should be.
Right.
Second, it highlights the importance of fit. When we're creating products or experiences or really anything that involves combining different elements.
Right.
Because even if the individual elements are great, if they don't fit together well, the whole thing can suffer.
Right. And it's not just about the whole thing suffering.
Right.
It's about the individual elements suffering as well.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
They get dragged down by the misfit.
Right.
Yeah.
And third, I think it challenges us to be more mindful of our own biases. And to try to be more objective when we're evaluating things.
Right, so to not just dismiss something
Yeah.
out of hand because it seems mismatched.
Exactly.
Yeah.
To really take the time to consider the individual elements and to appreciate their value,
Right.
even if they don't fit perfectly into our neat little boxes. Yeah, because sometimes the most innovative things
Right.
come from those mismatched combinations.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think this misfit bias is something that we all need to be aware of. So that we don't miss out on the good stuff.
Yeah, and so that we don't unfairly judge things.
Exactly, just because they don't fit our expectations.
Well, learner, I hope you found this deep dive as interesting as we did.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun talking about this.
Yeah, this misfit bias is a really fascinating idea.
Yeah, it really makes you think.
And I think it has a lot of implications for how we approach the world.
Yeah, for sure.
So as you go about your day, keep this misfit bias in mind.
Yeah, and next time you see something that seems out of place,
Right.
don't be so quick to dismiss it.
Yeah, take a closer look.
Yeah.
You might be surprised at what you find.
Exactly.
And if you're interested in learning more about the misfit bias, you can check out the original article in Organization Science.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah, we'll put a link in the show notes.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us, learner.
Yeah.
And don't forget to subscribe to Revise and Resubmit on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you're enjoying the show and want to support us in creating more insightful content, consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Every contribution helps us continue this journey of exploration and discovery. Until next time, keep those minds curious, keep questioning, and keep revising and resubmitting.